In every age, rulers have understood that the most effective means of subjugating a people is not through the sword, but through the manipulation of their desires. Bread and circuses sufficed for the Roman mob. Today, men are sedated with orgasm, once an evolutionary mechanism for reproduction. The orgasm has been transfigured into a chain that binds the modern man to a life of quiet servitude. The state no longer needs legions to march through the streets. It merely needs to ensure that men are perpetually satisfied and spiritually impotent. Pleasure, particularly the pleasure of sexual release, has always held the capacity to cloud judgment. A man who has known war hunger or competition is alert, dangerous, and potent. But a man who has been numbed by pleasure becomes predictable, pacified, and pliable. Orgasm, as it is administered and consumed today, is no longer an event of intimacy or legacy, but a synthetic escape from the demands of reality. What was once earned through conquest, connection, or courtship is now dispensed freely through screens, fantasies, and algorithms. This convenience is not progress. It is seduction by design. The architects of modern pleasure understand this dynamic well. Pornography, marketed as harmless indulgence, is in truth the most efficient apparatus of soft tyranny. It offers the illusion of satisfaction while silently extracting the will to act. It invites the man to believe he is victorious, when in fact he has surrendered. The woman on the screen is not his conquest. She is his jailer, crafted by pixels and producers to simulate power while delivering powerlessness. Consider how differently men behave before and after the indulgence of orgasm. Prior to the act, the man is sharp, desiring, imaginative, even volatile. He can risk, fight, and dare. He is a creator. But once he has spilled his essence, especially in solitude, he is docile, lazy, appeased. The mind that was once ablaze with ambition is quieted with the stupor of reward. What king would relinquish his throne for a bowl of soup? And yet modern men trade their empires of potential daily for the most base and momentary of pleasures. This strategy of control is subtle and therefore more dangerous. No one tells men they are being conquered. They are told they are free, progressive, enlightened. They are told that to masturbate is healthy, that to pursue sexual variety without consequence is liberation. They are told that desire is to be celebrated endlessly, not mastered. In truth, these messages serve a greater purpose: to ensure that the fire of masculine agency never burns too brightly. For a society full of virile, focused, sexually disciplined men is a threat to all established systems of comfort and control. The modern man, bombarded by sexual stimuli at every moment, from advertisements to social media to entertainment, exists in a permanent state of temptation. He is stalked by images that provoke his lust, weaken his resolve, and lead him toward easy release. And each time he surrenders, he gives something away: a fragment of focus, a moment of drive, an ounce of hunger. It is not the orgasm itself that enslaves him, but the frequency, the accessibility, and the lack of purpose behind it. Once, pleasure was the reward of those who built, fought, and led. It was the prize of power, not the path to it. Now, the roles are reversed. Pleasure precedes effort, and often replaces it entirely. A man today may feel as though he has lived a full life before he has even stepped outside his door. All his instincts, biological, social, and romantic, are sated by simulation. Why hunt when the prey is always delivered? Why build when the fantasy is instant? Why lead when the illusion of triumph is only a few clicks away? Through this constant indulgence, men have been turned into docile participants in their own undoing. The rulers of today do not command armies, they command attention. They do not issue decrees, they offer dopamine. And in this battlefield of the mind and flesh, the orgasm has become the most devastating weapon. A single moment of release, multiplied daily and distributed without meaning, has become a silent coup against masculine authority. Men no longer need to be beaten, they only need to be entertained, aroused, and emptied. The will of a man is the engine of civilization. It is his force of intent that builds towers, breaks empires, crosses oceans, and dares to reshape the world in his image. Will is not mere desire, it is disciplined fire. It is the faculty to delay gratification, to endure hardship, to remain steadfast when others yield. When this will is compromised, the man is no longer a force in history, but a footnote in it. Orgasm, particularly in the modern context, is not just a physical act. It is a siphon of that very will. With every indulgent release unmoored from purpose, a man dilutes his command over self, his appetite for excellence, and his capacity to rule. Where once masculine energy was channeled into acts of creation, conquest, and commitment, it is now squandered in private rituals of surrender. The modern man expends himself not in pursuit of legacy, but in pursuit of fleeting stimulation. He lies alone with his device, locked in a repetitive cycle of desire, climax, and emptiness. And each time he succumbs, the inner citadel weakens. He begins to accept passivity as normal, distraction as pleasure, and indulgence as freedom. The lion forgets the hunt. The general forgets the war. There is a profound reason why ancient orders, warrior castes, and even monastic traditions emphasized the retention or redirection of sexual energy. They knew, through experience and observation, that libido untamed leads not to strength but to erosion. Masculine will thrives on tension, not the comfort of satisfaction, but the sharp edge of hunger. It is in the denial of easy pleasure that a man tempers his inner steel. By contrast, the man who seeks constant release becomes reactive, not strategic, dependent, not sovereign, momentary, not eternal. In youth, this loss is often masked. The body still pulses with vigor, but the decay begins beneath the surface, in the faculties of attention and purpose. The man who once aspired to greatness now contents himself with fantasy. He no longer shapes his environment. He is shaped by it. The capacity to endure discomfort fades. He cannot sit in silence without fidgeting, cannot labor without pausing for distraction, cannot chase a dream without negotiating its terms with convenience. He becomes soft, not in body alone, but in spirit. Pornography plays a central role in this decay. It offers not just sexual release, but the illusion of dominance without effort. The man is made to feel like a conqueror, while in truth he is conquered by pixels. There is no challenge, no risk, no necessity to become worthy. The mind becomes habituated to reward without merit. Over time, the man forgets what it means to earn satisfaction through persistence, to win a woman through merit, to build his life rather than rent pleasure from the digital marketplace. He becomes a beggar dressed as a king, mistaking arousal for achievement. A man's will is rooted in his capacity to delay pleasure for a higher aim. But in the modern world, he is taught the opposite, that the highest aim is pleasure itself. And so his will disintegrates. He cannot commit, cannot sacrifice, cannot persevere. The gym is too hard, the study too boring, the enterprise too uncertain. Why should he endure these trials when release is available without struggle? Thus, he becomes enslaved to ease. His decisions are no longer guided by ambition, but by avoidance. He begins to navigate life, not by where he wants to go, but by where he will not be uncomfortable. The dissolution of masculine will does not occur with dramatic gestures. It happens quietly, habitually, in the daily choices to indulge rather than strive. It begins with small betrayals of the self. Another hour of scrolling, another night of release, another plan postponed. Over time, these betrayals calcify into character. The man who once dreamed of conquest becomes the man who cannot rise from his bed. The voice that once commanded attention becomes a whisper that no one hears. The will that once shaped the world becomes a memory that even he cannot recall. And while the world encourages him to accept this descent, to celebrate his weakness as authenticity, to normalize his lack of discipline as liberation, something within him recoils. He knows, even if dimly, that he was made for more than this. But knowing is not enough. The will must be cultivated, like fire, and fire does not grow in wet places. It dies in the damp comfort of constant orgasm. In every society, control is not maintained solely by force or law, but by commerce, the exchange of desires, the creation of dependency, and the management of scarcity. The libido of man, once a private force of procreation and bond, has been transformed into a public commodity, harvested for profit. Today, lust is not a sin, nor merely a temptation. It is an industry. And orgasm, the most intimate act of release, has become the most valuable currency in this economic system of manipulation. The modern marketplace does not ask for your labor first. It asks for your arousal. For the man whose desire is governed by his groin, is the most reliable consumer. The corporations that dominate the modern world understand the mechanics of male desire better than men themselves. They do not sell products. They sell fantasies wrapped in flesh. Every advertisement, every piece of media, every interface has been refined to stimulate the lower instincts. Women are used not for who they are, but for what they represent to the male psyche: validation, excitement, conquest, surrender. Sex is not merely present, it is omnipresent, woven into the threads of commerce like perfume into linen. You do not buy a car, you buy the image of the man who gets the girl. You do not buy clothes, you buy the suggestion of attention. You do not scroll through your feed, you are led by it, baited by bodies and bound by desire. The man who is ruled by orgasm is predictable. He spends not on necessity, but on stimulation. He is drawn to that which excites his senses and flatters his illusions. His wallet opens not for substance, but for spectacle. And so, he becomes the perfect subject of modern economics, endlessly needy, endlessly distracted, endlessly unsatisfied. No sooner has he climaxed than he feels the pull again. The product has no final satisfaction. It is designed to be consumed in cycles, each more urgent than the last. His addiction is not accidental. It is engineered. Consider the apparatus of pornography. It is not simply a collection of images. It is a business model that thrives on dependency. Every click is data. Every view is a signal. Every orgasm is a conversion. You are not the master of your screen. You are the resource being mined. Your attention is harvested, your patterns analyzed, your fantasies categorized and sold. You are given the illusion of infinite choice, while your choices narrow into cages. There is no risk, no cost, no consequence. Only submission to a system that profits when you lose control. The economy of lust extends beyond the obvious. It pervades dating platforms, lifestyle brands, fitness industries. Even self-improvement is now sold under the guise of sexual conquest. Learn to get women. Learn to seduce. Learn to project power so that others will give you what you want. Beneath it all is the same whisper: you are not enough unless you are desired. And so, men chase not meaning but market validation, altering their lives not for virtue, but for visibility. They go to war with themselves to be seen, not to become worthy. In this theater of manipulation, relationships are no longer sacred. They are transactional. Love is replaced with leverage. Commitment is replaced with convenience. Sex becomes negotiation, not union. Men, thinking themselves free agents in the sexual marketplace, are in fact commodities within it. Their worth is measured by their ability to attract, not their ability to lead. Their value is determined by numbers: followers, matches, likes, attention. The ancient order where a man built his house and earned his bride is gone. Now he rents her affection one swipe at a time. Economic systems reward that which produces return, and the modern economy finds no greater return than in the stimulation of male lust. It requires no warehouse, no raw material, no labor, only images, illusions, and algorithms. It has taken the most powerful force in man and monetized its misuse. The same energy that once built pyramids and founded cities is now spent in front of a screen, generating ad revenue. The male orgasm, detached from purpose, is no longer an act of nature, it is a transaction. When lust becomes economy, the man becomes inventory. He is no longer a sovereign actor in the market, but a product shaped by it. He is bought and sold, not in flesh, but in function. His impulses are not his own. His time is not his own. His mind is not his own. All have been purchased through pleasure. What he believes is freedom is a well-designed trap. What he believes is choice is the most effective form of control. The man who thinks with his lust can be led by his leash, and he will follow it willingly, so long as it promises release. Discipline is the invisible architecture of greatness. It is the invisible yoke that strong men place upon themselves, not out of weakness, but out of a knowing that chaos is always waiting to consume them the moment they grow soft. Without discipline, the man is not a ruler of his life, but a subject of impulse. And nowhere does the erosion of discipline manifest more clearly than in the realm of sexual indulgence. The modern world, armed with infinite distractions and temptations, has found in orgasm its most effective scalpel to carve discipline out of men. Discipline is not merely a routine or habit. It is resistance against comfort, against temptation, against the tyranny of one's own appetites. It is the daily war waged in silence, where a man either chooses the path of strength or the path of softness. In every civilization that aspired to greatness, the cultivation of discipline in men was a sacred duty. Young men were trained to deny themselves, to suppress impulse, to delay gratification. For it was understood that the world would only ever bow to the man who first mastered himself. But this knowledge has been systematically erased, replaced with the heresy of indulgence. Today, the man is taught to obey his cravings and to call this obedience freedom. The orgasm, stripped from purpose and elevated to an end in itself, has become the tool by which modern man is trained in surrender. He is taught to see it not as a force to be mastered, but as a medicine for stress, boredom, and loneliness. Each time he gives in, he tells himself he deserves it, that it is natural, even therapeutic. But nature does not excuse weakness. The lion who forgets hunger dies. The warrior who indulges in pleasure before battle loses before he fights. The man who treats orgasm as a remedy soon finds himself sick with apathy. The collapse of discipline is rarely dramatic. It is incremental, silent creeping. The man who once had goals now negotiates with them. The routine once upheld with pride becomes optional. The mornings start later, the nights end with flickering screens, and the days pass in a haze of half-effort. Sexual release, especially habitual and solitary, becomes the reward for nothing. It is given in exchange for the mere endurance of another day, rather than the triumph over one. He begins to fear struggle, to avoid challenge. He begins to believe that ease is the sign of success, that peace means pleasure. But peace achieved through surrender is merely disguised defeat. Modern society reinforces this illusion at every turn. Entertainment is saturated with sexual suggestion. The average man is bombarded with provocations that test his resolve daily. On billboards, in music, through algorithms that know his weakness better than he does. This is not coincidence. It is architecture. He is not meant to resist. He is meant to break. And when he breaks, he is sold solutions, self-help products, dating apps, testosterone boosters, therapy sessions. The system does not wish for men to conquer desire. It thrives on their failure to do so. A man without discipline is a man who cannot govern his time, his mind, or his fate. He becomes a creature of reactions, not decisions. If he cannot say no to the temptation of orgasm, how can he say no to lesser pleasures? Junk food, sleep, gossip, distraction. And if he cannot deny himself, how will he ever lead others? How will he protect? How will he build? The habits formed in the dark corners of solitude become the fate lived in the broad light of day. The man who collapses in secret cannot stand in public. His discipline has dissolved like sugar in water, sweet for a moment, but without structure or weight. To discipline oneself is to draw a line between man and animal. The animal does what it feels, and feels no shame. But the man must measure feeling against purpose. He must ask, will this indulgence make me stronger? And if the answer is no, he must act accordingly. But this question is no longer asked in a world that praises softness as virtue. Now men are told to be open, expressive, unfiltered. They are praised not for their mastery, but for their vulnerability. They weep before they act, confess before they conquer, release before they rise. What was once considered noble restraint is now called repression. A disciplined man walks in quiet opposition to the age. He is hated not because he harms others, but because he reminds them of what they are not. He becomes a threat by merely existing, because he represents the power of self-possession. But the disciplined man is rare, because the path that leads to him is treacherous. It is full of isolation, failure, temptation, and the constant whisper that says, just once more. Most do not survive the journey. Most choose release. Most choose the warmth of the moment over the cold forge of mastery. And so, they collapse, not with a scream, but with a sigh. There was a time when man stood as king, over land, over beast, over his own passions. He was not crowned by lineage alone, but by mastery. The throne was not merely a symbol of power, it was the seat of dominion over the self. The true king ruled first within. But in the modern age, man has abdicated this throne willingly. He has not been overthrown by external enemies, but by internal appetites. The most powerful of these is sexual desire, and the most ruinous form of its indulgence is the careless, compulsive orgasm. Once the mark of legacy and virility, it is now a badge of enslavement. Where kings once disciplined their flesh, modern men now serve it. And so they fall, from sovereigns into servants, from rulers into slaves. The ancient man was not free because he could act on impulse, but because he could restrain it. He fathered children not through random indulgence, but through the conscious creation of lineage. His lust was a weapon, not a leash. It was something he harnessed for purpose, whether to bond with his woman, to fulfill his duties, or to build a family that would endure beyond his death. He did not spill his seed aimlessly. He understood it was the essence of his strength, not something to be wasted for momentary pleasure. He respected what he carried. He treated it as sacred. That man is now a relic, remembered only in fading epics and forgotten virtues. The modern man, by contrast, is ruled by urges that he believes are freedoms. He calls his surrender expression. He celebrates his own chains and defends the prison that holds him. He believes that the constant pursuit of pleasure is liberation, when it is, in fact, the deepest form of submission. Each time he chooses orgasm over aspiration, indulgence over integrity, fantasy over effort, he sells a piece of his kingdom. No tyrant takes it from him. He hands it away, piece by piece, for nothing more than the illusion of satisfaction. Technology has accelerated this collapse. In his pocket, the modern man carries access to a harem of illusions. He can summon the image of any woman, any act, any fantasy within seconds. He no longer needs to build status, forge strength, or earn desire. It is sold to him without cost, and he becomes addicted to its ease. But what is ease without effort? It is rot disguised as luxury. The flesh of kings was once tested in battle, tempered by hardship, sculpted by purpose. Now it is softened by constant comfort, dulled by overstimulation, emptied by mechanical release. His muscles may remain, his posture may pretend, but the fire has left him. He becomes apathetic to duty, indifferent to discipline, allergic to hardship. He avoids the edge where greatness is forged because the glow of screens keeps him warm enough to forget. He is no longer driven by legacy, but by craving. The voice that once whispered of conquest now murmurs of convenience. Why build a family when digital lovers await? Why seek truth when pleasure lies closer? Why suffer for something higher when you can satisfy something lower instantly? This transformation is not just personal, it is political. A society of men ruled by their flesh is a society that is easily governed. They do not rise against injustice because rebellion requires sacrifice. They do not organize because solidarity requires selflessness. They do not build, they do not question, they do not lead. Their energy has been rerouted from ambition into appetite. They no longer desire the crown because they have been trained to kneel. And the rulers of this age, corporations, institutions, systems, prefer it so. A man distracted by orgasm will never discover that he is enslaved. A man chasing pleasure is not a threat, he is a pet. Once, the test of manhood was restraint. To be surrounded by temptation and remain unmoved was a sign of royalty. Now, the test is inverted. To indulge endlessly and feel no shame is called maturity. The man who resists is mocked. The one who abstains is labeled repressed. This inversion is not accidental. It is part of the grand unmaking of masculinity. Inverting virtue makes vice appear natural. Making kings look like fools ensures that fools will never attempt to become kings. To rise again, man must reclaim the throne not from others, but from himself. He must walk back through the illusions he accepted, confront the appetites he obeyed, and wrestle with the animal he fed. The throne is not gone, it waits, silent and empty, in the place he abandoned it. But it cannot be bought, and it will not be given. It must be taken. And it can only be taken by a man who no longer lives for his flesh, but commands it. Until then, he remains exiled, not by force, but by orgasm, a king in potential who has mistaken his cell for a palace. What has been laid bare is not a condemnation of pleasure, but a reckoning with its cost when divorced from purpose. The modern man, drunk on the illusion of freedom, has traded the crown of discipline for the shackles of indulgence. Orgasm, once a sacred culmination of union and a symbol of masculine potency, has been transformed into a tool of suppression, a means by which the engines of culture, commerce, and control erode his will, drain his strength, and reduce his sovereignty to dust. This fall is not the result of weakness imposed from without, but consent given from within. The enemy wears no armor, it whispers in comfort, sells through desire, and conquers through ease. The man who cannot govern his lust cannot govern his life, and the civilization built by strong men collapses when their sons forget restraint, forget sacrifice, forget that mastery of the self precedes mastery of the world. Rebuilding begins not with laws or movements, but with the man alone in his room, facing his own habits, facing his own mind. The return to kingship requires war, not with others, but with the deepest parts of the self that hunger for surrender. Only in that war can the throne be reclaimed. Only then can man cease to be a slave to his flesh and rise once more as a ruler of his destiny.